We're now joined by the National Spokesperson for the Department of Basic Education, Elijah Mhlanga. Mr. Mhlanga, your response to this call?
Well, Francis, we have noted the call by SADTU. The good thing is that SADTU will be meeting with the minister tomorrow morning. That's when the call they've made will probably be repeated, and they will further provide the detail that they say they've gathered from schools, and we will take it from there. But for now, what we can say is that the decision to close schools is taken by Cabinet, and the plans that the Department of Basic Education and provinces have implemented were approved at that level. So it's a process. It's not something that you can say you call today, you respond tomorrow, and you do it the next day.
Okay, so you will at least consider the call. Is that what you're saying? You're keeping your options open. They say a responsible government will be a listening government.
Well, we've been saying from the start that we would be monitoring on a day-to-day basis. This is also something that the Minister of Health also talks about, that we check the environment on a day-to-day basis. You get advice from experts who are doing research on the behavior and character of the coronavirus, and then take that into account in every decision that you make going forward. That's why even the decision to reopen schools was one that said, don't bring back all the learners back to school, but rather do it in phases, which is what we are doing now. All of that was informed by the medical advice.
Do you believe that SADTU has a point? I mean, the World Health Organization has also suggested that schools perhaps should only open up safely once community transmission has been dealt with. And we're heading into the worst period of community transmission.
I think Dolopi was correct, and that's our understanding as well of what the World Health Organization is saying, that we shouldn't be isolating sectors and say, close this one, open the other. We need to have a broader look and say, how do we reduce community infections? How you do that is to have the comprehensive approach to it, which means all of us need to play our part in making sure that we comply with the requirements for health and safety wherever we are. It cannot be that we isolate certain parts and say, okay, close this, open this other one, allow people to get into a taxi, but don't allow them to use that same taxi to go to school. It's that type of approach that we should be having and say, as a country, what is it that we need to do to meet that objective of flattening the curve and eventually stopping the spread of the virus? Yeah. So let's not blame each other, let's rather work together. And we agree with the view that Mr. Dolopi was expressing there, to say the communities themselves must also take responsibility for what is happening out there, which is resulting in the increase of infections.
Mr. Mhlanga, this has become such a thorny issue. I think it is around the world because parents and communities and leaders have such different opinions. But the president didn't even talk about this in his address the other day. And there are very real issues here of school closures that we know are happening, the deaths of pupils. Do you believe as a department you've been proactive enough, communicative enough?
We have been on the ground on a daily basis. We do that. We monitor. We know what's happening in every province and in every school. That's why we even picked up that there were inconsistencies when it comes to the management of COVID cases in schools, where schools were not communicating that which is in the standard operating procedures. We knew that because we were getting feedback from schools, from the teachers that are in the classroom every day, but we also do our own visits to those schools to listen to what the teachers are saying and other employees, as well as the learners. We talk to them. We ask, so how is it working in this environment which is not familiar to you? School has never been like this before, but how are you coping? We listen and take that into account in everything that we do. That's why you would have seen 2 weeks ago that the decision to return so many grades was changed, and even fewer grades were returned to school. So that's what we do. We are monitoring every day, and we are listening to what is being said. And we're also aware of the concerns, the anxiety, the panic, and fear. It's real. People are infected. Some of them are unfortunately dying. That's what is happening around the world. So we need to look at our own circumstances and say, as a country, what is it that we can learn from what others are doing, and what is it that we then need to do going forward.
So can you give us a real national picture tonight of how many pupils have been affected by COVID-19 in whatever way, or affected by the school closures? And what about what Mr. Delopi says, that not much teaching is happening anyway in township schools?
Well, I'm not sure about that, because in the schools that we go to and in the schools that we're interacting with, and the teachers and the principals that we're talking to, there is teaching taking place, and we're seeing others are writing tests and all of those things. So it's really taking place. Perhaps we really need to ask ourselves, what is it that we're expecting in this COVID environment in schools to be taking place? Things are not normal, but some teaching is taking place. Yes, some schools are closing and opening. We provided the standard operating procedures for it because we knew it was going to happen. And even with attendance, we have been saying there are other options. You don't necessarily need to come to school as a child, or as a parent, you don't need to release your child to school if you feel uncomfortable in doing so. And when some of these learners don't go to school, it is because they're probably opting for home education or online learning if they can do so. So we have made all those options available, so we shouldn't therefore say they are not working when in fact we made them available. So let's work together. Let's focus on solutions. What is it that we need to do? And engagement is the way to go, and that's what we are committed to.
Okay, so you say you will engage as early as tomorrow, but you're still talking about this holistic approach where the economy is opened, schools are opened. If government decides to keep schools open and that's resisted, I mean, then what happens? Are you concerned there could be a strike, and teachers will be able to stop the school year anyway?
We don't believe that there will be a need for a strike. I mean, if you listen to what SADTU said earlier today, they said, we are calling for schools to close, but stay in school until such time that a decision is made and you will be told what you're going to do. So you can see that there is an intention to have a solution through engagement. That's what we are focusing on. Strike, I mean, that's not even something that's on the radar in the way that we are looking at things. We believe that we need to focus on engagement. Let's discuss issues. Let's share information, and which is what we expect to happen. They say that they've gathered information, bring it to the table. Let's look at it. We'll also bring our information and we discuss it and agree on a way forward. It's a complex situation. We have not been here before. So what we need to do is to work together and listen to each other and take decisions together. But we're not going to agree all the time on the way forward, because there's also the issue of fear, but there's also the issue of science. So we need to try and get the balance right in getting the country to be moving forward.
All right. Thank you very much for your time tonight. Spokesperson for the Department of Basic Education, Elijah Mhlanga.